Good morning, Taylor. How are you? Or afternoon for
Not too
you.
bad. Yeah, afternoon. Yeah, it's just started. How are you today?
I am doing well, thank you. Yeah, it's Monday morning
Yeah.
here, and yeah,
Oh, yeah, it's morning by your side.
yeah, almost 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no, it's fine. This is
Oh,
good. Yeah,
yeah.
this is good. Yeah. Um, I'm excited about getting to talk about your work today and getting to know you as a writer. I mean, outside of what we've already talked about, so this is great. Are you are you ready for our big exciting interview? Because I can do my intro and we will get right to it.
You can go anytime you wish.
Okay, excellent.
Let's go.
Excellent. Hey
Let's see.
everyone, this is Mark Justice, and welcome back to Between the Lines. Today we have very special writer and friend Taylor Harding Jenkins, and I think Taylor's going to have a lot of great things to say. Taylor, welcome to Between the Lines.
Hello, Mark. How are you today?
Doing wonderfully. Some of you may remember Taylor from our wonderful panel we had a few weeks back on Pride Month, and so I'm really excited to get to talk to her and talk to you, Taylor, about your writing. And so let's get right into it. Um, let's. I like to start with like big picture questions and kind of get to know a writer and looking back. You know, as writers, usually what we all have in common as being
hmm
readers. So, who are some of your favorite writers?
So, well, favorite writers, to be honest, I'm not like reading a lot of fiction, which is like kind of, like in contrast to what I'm actually doing. I'm mostly like reading like like kind of like I mean obviously I love the classics such as French writer Victor Hugo, Emile Zola as well. These are like my favorite like kind of readings, but I'm mostly like reading nonfiction. Recently, I've been like reading The Prince, which was like kind of The Prince of Niccolo Machiavelli, which was
Yes,
like kind of like basically like every head of state have like read like that book. I mean,
it's
even
essential
myself
reading.
as
Yes,
I mean, even myself as a manager, it kind of helped me, like, like in my professional life. So it was like interesting reading. Other than this, I love like H.P. Lovecraft. It's like kind of actually like because it like obviously like the Cthulhu and everything. It is like my favorite like fiction writer, but I'm not really into like writing fantasy. I'm not really like very familiar with the psychologic thriller universe, even though I'm like writing in this mostly. So yeah, I'd say like I kind of like just like music. I kind of have like eclectic tastes.
yes. I like Machiavelli. It was a portion of his essay, his book I taught to my English classes, and
hmm
some of them were really taken by. I mean, his argument is makes sense, but he's very
Yeah.
pragmatic. It's
Mm,
better to be feared than loved, and fear is a prime
yeah.
motivator. And love can be bought, but fear, that's genuine. Um, and Lovecraft, and Lovecraft is another thing I would often have my students read, and
Yeah.
they would they struggle with the language. It is a dense language. His style is very dense, but his stories are
Yeah.
so wonderfully
The
written.
thing the thing is like when I read the Necronomicon like both in English and in French, it was like kind of like quite different, like there was like actually like very different. And the thing with Lovecraft is like he was like actually a very talented writer, but misunderstood. And that's the thing with him. Like he literally had like I mean, he had like a very short life, and he ended up like completely isolated. And it was like, but he's probably like one of the certainly like one of the best writers of all time, in my very opinion.
Yeah, and so much the amount of work he put out in such a short time
Yeah,
reminds me of some of the other pulp writers like Robert E. Howard, who created the character of
mm,
Conan, and
yeah,
they were pen pals and friends, and they were both very kind of troubled individuals
mm,
who'd had short lives.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but there was just something about Lovecraft, his fiction,
Mm,
and that kind of vagueness to his language, which
yeah.
it just really picks at the imagination,
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. With Lovecraft, you go straight to the point. I mean, it's like if I'm like reading like a book, it must be something that takes me away like right away. You know what I mean?
sure.
Otherwise,
I
what's
get
the
it.
point?
Yeah, if you've never read Howard, Robert E. Howard, then I would suggest he does write some Lovecraftian fiction because of
Hmm.
his friendship with Lovecraft. So he
Yeah,
does write horror, but he's mostly fantasy, kind of a
mm,
sword and sorcery kind of thing. But if you want something
yeah,
to pull you right in immediately, his Conan stories will do that.
yeah.
Yeah, very good. That was foundational to my teenage years. Um, but speaking of growing up, what were some of your favorite books that you remember as a child and growing up in your younger years reading? What were some of your favorite books that you think maybe have been foundational to you?
Oh, so basically, when I was a kid, I loved reading Roald Dahl, obviously British writer, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The movie was great. With Johnny Depp was amazing, but it was like the book of my childhood. During teenage time, I didn't really read that much. I mean, I mean, I read a lot. I mean, when I mean a lot, I mean like a few. Like it was mostly like short stories. What I was mostly into was like classicals and uh, books. I mean, for me, like I think like a book is something that must bring you something like knowledge or whatever. I read like a lot of scientific book. Obviously, I read a lot of piloting books, like books written by pilots. Obviously, because I'm one of them. So it was like these books that literally transcended me the most. And there was actually like this book. I don't remember the title, but it was like written by by it was like the pilot of the first French woman that went to space. He was a pilot and he was like writing like a kind of big encyclopedia about like like piloting and stuff. So it was actually like very like this book was like and I lost it like when I moved like recently, and it literally annoyed me. And but it was like something like one of the few books I read. I also read like the Art of War by Sun Tzu. Obviously, another classic. What else? Yeah, the Art of War was like, and I also read like a lot of books about like these like alternative sciences such as like NLP, hypnosis. I tried to actually like learn a lot, like from manipulators, because basically I'm writing the story of a master manipulator, so I have to like learn a lot. And this was like mostly my teenage readings, I'd say. Not that much fiction. So obviously I tried like Harry Potter. I never liked it, to be honest. I mean, I've never been like a fan of J.K. Rowling. Um, uh, and yeah, pretty much that was it. It was like mostly like scientific books, piloting, and everything like this.
Yeah, I'm with you in Harry Potter. There's nothing attractive at all to me there. I just don't care. I'm more
Yeah.
intrigued by her story and thinking that's a wonderful story to go from being homeless to being the
Mm,
first billionaire writer. That's pretty awesome,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But no, no,
Even like there's nothing like I try to actually. There's nothing like immersive in where I mean, there are probably like some people that love Harry Potter, and I respect that, but it's definitely I've never been like really immersed by Harry Potter. I've never been like really like a big fan of J.K. Rowling, so that's
yeah, I think it's the subject matter. I just don't
mm,
care about a bunch of kid wizards. It just doesn't. There's nothing in there to connect to me, and then that's okay.
yeah,
We don't.
mm,
You like what you like, and
yeah,
I mean, I'm okay with that. I've seen some of the movies because it was on TV, and my wife's a fan,
mm,
and I was like, I just I just can't.
Yeah.
I just can't care. There's just nothing in here that just makes me feel any
Yeah.
emotion at all, other than like, you know,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
I love I love Stephen King as well. Stephen King was like actually like one of, and it's like the kind of, we are kind of like similar in like writing or like kind of together, like saying aloud, you know, like what people think, you know.
Yeah, I thought King would be the first billionaire writer, to be honest, because he still sells, you know, tons of books, and all of his
Mm,
movie deals and everything else that he's done, you know, like everything he writes gets
yeah.
turned into a movie, for better or
Mm,
worse. You know,
yeah.
like The Gunslinger or The Dark Tower, that was an example of something
Mm,
that should not have been done. Um,
yeah.
you know, because he's
The
got these
Green
giant.
Line was the one that literally like I think was a masterpiece. Even the film was excellent.
Yeah, the film, it's hard to watch. Like, you, for me, those
Hard
kinds
to
of
watch. Yeah.
movies, it the emotional toll that it takes on you,
Yeah.
says
Mm,
I will watch this movie once, but I don't think I ever want to watch it again, because it's just too hard. It takes too much out of me. It's a great film.
yeah.
Um,
Mm,
you know, and it's
I
different
mean,
than like important films like Saving Private Ryan. I think it's an important film. Like I think every
it is.
everyone should see this movie. But
Yeah,
it is not
definitely. Yeah.
enjoyable. It's not for entertainment, because it is brutal and it is
Mm,
heartbreaking and just crushing. And but it is
yeah.
important. It's important, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I haven't read King. I tried to. There was one, maybe The Regulators. I tried reading. I just couldn't get into it. The last, I think, novel I read of his, this is ancient, was Pet Cemetery, like
Mm,
1983,
yeah.
and I loved it. You know, I was 16 at the time. So let's talk about your fiction. You write psychological thrillers. That's
Hmm.
what your work is now. So to you, you know, what makes a good psychological thriller story?
So, first, that must be like a badass character. Like, literally, like the character must be like, you know, someone like very specific. Actually, for like Free Expensive Lies, I didn't really inspire myself from like other psychological thrillers books, but I mostly inspired myself from like TV shows. You take like someone that, you know, like completely like is not outlaw but doesn't care about like the conventions, like clearly a person with like a huge antisocial behavior is like someone for me that makes like the most interesting part of it. After, like, this person must have like a specific skill. For example, we recently saw like The Mentalist on the TVs. We show like illusionists, and I've been like trying to write the story of a master manipulator, because like after all, I mean, obviously when you say like about someone that he or she is a manipulator, it's not really usually like not really nice. But I've been trying to, like, you know, kind of democratize the thing. I want to show that manipulators are like just like people with like psychological tools that are not necessarily evil. Know what I mean? It's And this is what I've been like trying to do, like in Free Expensive Lies, trying to show that you can be a manipulator without being an asshole, pretty much. For example, like my main character is using like her manipulation skills to try to save her girlfriend out of a human trafficking scheme, and so that this is what like the story is about. And so this is what makes for me, like, first the character, probably like the city and everything. I mean, it can be like a master manipulator, you know, in the middle age and still making like an amazing story. Obviously, like in the middle age, it's like kind of different, because like there was not like that much knowledge about like psychology as there is today. Um, but it's like, you know, like one of these things, like the character must be like the essential piece um of the book, the flagship of the book, pretty much. Like in Free Expensive Lights, it's all about Charlotte. It's not all, above like the rest, and her skills and the fact that she must be like cold-blooded. She must also be like kind of like fearless, someone completely fearless. That's what I think must make a great book.
Nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
You also have an autobiographical novel where
Yeah.
you talk about your life and as a trans woman. And
Yeah.
how important was it for you to tell your story? I mean, because to write about that. I mean, yeah, let's talk about that. How the importance of writing that book for you.
Oh, well, it was like, I mean, it was like, It Fell from Venus was like basically a book that I wrote. I actually wrote that book like a long time ago, and I kept it in the closet for a while. And one day, I think it was like just following like a message on Instagram. Actually, I've been approached by a journalist who wanted me to talk about like my transition, because by the time I was anonymous, I actually came back as transgender without obviously showing myself. And then I wrote that article for her, and I decided to actually I talked to my wife about this, and I was like, oh, why not like taking back like He Fell from Venus, but in the beginning it was written in French, so I had to translate it into English, which was actually like much more complicated than it was initially, because even today still like from people who are like reading the book, they're telling me that it's like not always like easy to follow due to like the translation that I did myself and everything.
Well, the structure of
But
French is a little different than the structure of English, and it's not as nearly as idiomatic.
it
You know,
is, it
yeah.
is, and it's especially like when you have like to translate like things that are like proper to French and proper to English, expressions as well, idiomatics and everything. It's really different. And so when I started like translating the book and editing the book, I was like, then why not? And I wanted to publish it like to like, because I mean nowadays there are like lots of books about like transgenders coming out, but I was like, why not bringing like my stone to the building? And this was why it was like important. And actually it's been like nearly a year that I published it, so it's I had like for now positive feedbacks about it. um Even like recently someone like marked it at like 5 stars, and I was like quite happy with that. So whomever is that reader probably is like hearing me now. Thank you very much. But yeah, it was like I actually came out as it was like important to me to actually like speak out about this, because it was like a therapy in a way. And and I was like, this story is not meant to like remain in the closet. It must be like something that we must talk about it. It's like an important topic.
Hmm. I mean, I think ultimately writing is cathartic, no matter what shape it takes.
Mm,
I mean, we always invest something of ourselves into our stories to some degree, and sometimes the topics and what we write about, it is a vehicle for us to kind of process emotions and emotional baggage and
yeah.
dealing with things in a way that's very therapeutic.
Hmm.
And so my first two books were like that in a lot of ways, dealing, very much so. And well, the first three actually, yeah. Now that I
I
think about
need
it, like, huh, that's right, my third one. um
I need
yes,
to read your books, by the way.
yes,
I
you
really need to
do.
read your books. Yeah.
I'll be happy to send you copies. Yeah,
Oh,
you don't mind PDF, do you? Is that okay?
oh, I
I'll
don't.
just, okay.
It's fine.
Yeah, I'll be happy to send them to you. um so yeah, I can see that the importance of that. And it actually, I bring it up only because what when I started thinking about it, I struggled with my fourth book, and realizing, because I wasn't trying to process anything.
Mm,
I was just trying to tell a story, and I felt like nothing, like an absence of emotion when writing it. Like I could tell that some of the words I was writing were good words,
Yeah.
but I only had, I think I wanted to write the book in a month. It's a pulp. And
Mm.
so there was like one day of writing where I actually felt something like,
Yeah.
okay, today's a good day.
Yeah.
I've written like 4,000 words and I feel really good about it. I'm on a roll.
Yeah.
And every other day was just like, I have no idea if this is any good or if it's garbage. I can't tell.
Well,
Yeah. And it was weird.
surprisingly, it's the way I wrote, like, He Fell from Venus. Basically, when I wrote it, it was like not in the form of like writing a book. When I wrote it, it was like under the form of a newsletter. For example, it's why like it's not like divided into chapters, but it's divided into days, and it was like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and it was like in stories. And I used to send it to by email to my friends, and I had like feedbacks. Obviously, when it was like sent in French, so it was not sent in English. And as I had like good feedbacks from this, I was like, why not publishing it? And but yeah, it was like actually like challenging because when you're like writing something that is like quite intimate as your personal life, it's much harder to actually like put words into like some things that you could be proud of and something that you could probably not be as proud as um for example, like my previous relationships. It's like kind of exposing yourself, and it's really hard to go like into publishing actually.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
when I wrote my books, there was only one person other than myself who knew that I was using these as a vehicle to process deep
Mhm.
emotional states. That was my wife.
Yeah.
She knew why I was writing these books. But
Yeah.
I was careful to craft the story and build
Mm.
within the first one, especially this character whose life was kind of mirroring my own. But there's a combination of, there's an omniscient narrator and then there's the voice of the character who kind of finishes the narrator's thoughts. And so she's
Mm.
this ongoing consciousness in the story.
Yeah.
And so sometimes she gets a little too much in her own head because she's just trying to
Mm.
figure things out. So that was the vehicle that I used to process. It was just my
Yeah.
stream of consciousness, kind of, as she's trying to figure out what to do with her life, I was doing the same. you
Yeah.
know and whereas my second book, there wasn't that stream of consciousness. It was just fueling a more fine point,
Mm.
a different emotion channeling, but it was pure. My second book I
Yeah.
love is my favorite, Gage
Mm.
Black, Hell's Revenge. It's the first time I put everything of me on the page, you know
Yeah.
all the words. Yeah.
It's actually the thing I'm currently doing with Free Expensive Lies now. I'm writing like the second opus, which is to be published in 2024, which is like basically in a year and a half. And I went through like all because the first one I went through like some events that I lived, but like in the headlines pretty much. But now I'm going like kind of like deeper into like worst traumas that I had to face in my life. And it's kind of feeling like it takes you like to the bone, you know what I mean? It's probably just like as you described, like in like the way you were like building your books. I was like actually like putting everything on paper. I mean, like the first one are like very lengthy. I'm like kind of, I don't really like writing like short stories. I'm more like into like, if I have to like read a book, it must be like a big book. Otherwise, there's no point. And I know that it's not like what's on the market right now, but
Yeah.
uh, first of all, I'm writing for myself. Like I'm
Sure.
writing to like heal inside. Um,
Yeah, that's the first that's ultimately what we all have to do, I think, as writers, is write for ourselves. I mean,
yeah.
I know people who write to market,
Mm.
but that's not me. I can't do that. I have to write a
Yeah.
story that I have to connect with, and I have to feel something at some
Exactly.
at some level. I'm not just going to be
Mm.
churning out words because I think it's going to be a seller. That's like
Yeah.
hollow, But maybe
Mm.
if I had been writing much longer and I was just used to the concept of writing 8 hours a day and I could just crank out anything I wanted, maybe that would be
Yeah.
different.
Mm.
But that's not me,
Yeah.
not my
I
not my writing
mean,
style.
I mean, it can be like different because I'm like writing literally any day, anytime. So it's sometimes I'm taking like some stuff, sometimes I'm like just it depends on the mood and obviously the time I have, you know,
Yeah.
for like most of the things.
Are there any other genres that you would like to write, do you think? You want to try your hand at some
Be
cosmic
honest,
horror?
um, I actually tried to write a philosophical essay recently about like you know, like going into like these motivational speeches, um, never give up and all these kind of things. But yeah, this is like the non-fiction part. For the fiction part, I actually like recently like had a project with a friend and we were like trying to go like into like politics and stuff. Politic intrigues. I mean, it's kind of close to like my actual genre, like as it is.
Hmm.
But going into like politic intrigues, you know, like vampirism and things like this.
It's kind of one and the
But
same, right? Politics and vampirism are kind of similar, right?
yeah, in a way, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, um, yeah. But I was like thinking about like going into this. But I mean, it's like, you know, like depending on the mood and how I feel. Like sometimes I feel like writing like some stuff. Sometimes what I'm mostly writing is like short stories. I wanted to like write something. Probably like I would publish it like at some point. You know, I still have like many stories in the closet, like waiting to be like exhumed. So it's
Hmm.
it's like
Yes.
recently, like I mean, like for example, like in 2010, so I was like 16 or something, I wrote like a historical romance. So it was like something like completely different to what I'm like currently writing like now. And but what I'm like trying to do is like building like the story of a family. And for example, like Charlotte Kominsky is like the descendant of the character I wrote like in this romance. So it's like kind of like, you know, trying to build a link, you know, between characters. And so that's pretty much what I'm trying to do, like
Hmm.
going into January. I mean, I will see like what depends on like what I want and what I aspire to do.
Sure. Well, what was it that made you want to start writing in the first place?
I was actually like very young. It's kind of complicated story. Basically, I'm what is called, you know, like I don't know the term actually in English, but I know like in French it's called like something like high potential. I've got like what is called like the absolute memory, which is like I literally remember everything. And when I was a kid, like I didn't learn to like write and count at school. I did it by myself because school was too slow for me.
Okay.
So when I was like writing, I started like writing like I was like 5 or 6, like a very first short story. It was like a kind of biographical about like Mozart, because Mozart is like my favorite composer.
Nice.
I could listen Mozart literally all day. I mean, this music is like just
It's
divine, you know.
it is transcendent. He's on my
It's
writing playing list. Yes, yes.
is yeah. I mean, it is a god to me. I think it's like you know, I think at this level. And so yeah, I actually like listened a lot to this music, and this was what like and I loved actually writing. And as I grew up, I went through like many like my parent divorced. I obviously went through depression. I went through due to the fact that I am also I have the gender dysphoria, so it's kind of like it pushed me like especially during teenage time, which was also why I started like trying to like in a way building some defenses against like trying to understand what was wrong with me. So it's why I read a lot in psychology, and I interested myself a lot on this. And what pushed me to write actually was to actually kind of express myself. Um, the thing is like when you have like gender dysphoria and you have like the absolute memory and you have like you are literally able to remember, because like people think that having the absolute memory is fun. It's not. It's far from being fun, because you obviously remember like a lot of things. So you tell me things once and I will always remember. You tell me but the thing is like you remember like good moments, but you mostly remember bad moments, and you mostly remember like for example, like my memory was full of my parents arguing when I was a kid. When also like when I had like my first puberty as a man, it was like it's hard to understand for people, but it was a really big trauma for me. It was like you know, like the fact that I was becoming a person I was not thinking I would become one day was a huge, huge trauma, and it literally ended up like in a depression of which I'm still not fully recovered today. And so the fact of working is like my expression is like the place where I'm feeling good, where I'm feeling myself, where I can say everything, where I can be myself, where I can truly like express myself and be the person I am, and the person not I want to be, because obviously if I want to be like Charlotte, I would go into like big trouble in my life. But um you know, it's like just be the like just like feeling like, you know, like a huge relief.
Yeah. So I get that. That's interesting, and I guess terrifying, because there are things, as far as your memory goes, there are things that we look back and things that have formed us, and our brain works hard sometimes to subdue those or
Yeah,
forget those things because they are so scarring. We carry the effects, but to remember everything, goodness gracious. I'm glad writing at least allows you some psychic
yeah,
relief and a steam valve to
yeah.
kind of let some of that out.
Mm,
Um, to that end, I'd like to talk about your world building, you know, for your
mm.
story. How do you go about designing your world?
Well, it's a lot of past experience, literally. Like I said, like, you know, with my memory, I'm literally like my brain is like a Hoover, you know. Everything that passes before me is always like remember and used at some point. And the fact is like I'm using like a lot of anecdotes like from you know, like what I heard and everything to actually like build my character. Um, it's like basically for Charlotte, it's like for example, my wife told me like recently because like Charlotte is like the character. She's actually in literally every pieces of work I'm doing. She's like for close. She is also in If Fell from Venus for like the fiction part of the book. There's like a real part and a fiction part, but she's like in It Fell from Venus, for example, she's like the metaphor of my gender dysphoria. So it's like um, she's like a kind of my alter ego, you know. She's like myself, but in another world.
Mhm.
And we are feeling like, you know, we are kind of like there's a link between us, and I don't know if you see what I mean. It's quite hard to actually like explain. She's like my link in another world, in a place where I am free.
Yeah, it's your
It's
idealized self. This is the way the world should be, in a way. In a perfect world,
yeah,
perfect society, this is
in a perfect world,
right.
this is I would be Charlotte, probably. Yeah,
Okay, so I'm guessing, so she's your favorite character. Um,
yeah.
I think because I was going to ask about characters and how you've built them, but you kind of just talk about that. And also, I always ask, like, which of your characters would you most like to have a drink with? Would you also say
Oh,
Charlotte did it?
actually, that would not be Charlotte.
Because I figured
No,
you know yourself, so
character,
yeah. Which of your
the
characters would you like to have a
character
drink with?
I would have a drink with would be That's a good question, actually. That would definitely be like her name is Kelly. I would have a drink with her because she's exactly the kind of character that I hate. And it's kind of interesting to actually like have a drink with someone with whom you have like differences, because like from differences you learn a lot from people.
Sure.
And the thing I learned with like people who hate me like mostly is like they are like the people who are surprisingly the most sincere with me. So that's the thing I love. Like for example, Charlotte is like, besides like mostly besides who she is, she's like using manipulation. She's like using lies to ultimately get the truth. And I think that would definitely be Kelly, with whom I would have a drink with. Definitely, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And what would be the first question you would ask her?
Uh, the first question I would ask her, um, I don't know, actually. Uh, um, why are you like this? Why are you like? Yeah, probably like.
No,
What the
that's
hell? Why the hell are you like this? Yeah,
get right to the heart of the matter. No, that's good. That's good.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm not one to when I write characters. I don't. I know other writers who have like conversations with their characters, and they write really extensive notes about, and they have these long like character biographies, and that is wonderful. That's not my style process, but when I had to put that question to myself and I'm looking like, who would I like to have a drink with? And there are a handful of characters, like, okay, these are probably 3 or 4 I think would be really fun to talk with, because as I wrote, some of these secondary characters took on more of a role. Like once I started writing them, I started like
Yeah.
loving them more. Like, oh, I really like this character, and I didn't expect to. And so that's I think the joy of writing, and like when a character kind of starts developing, and like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, this is fun. I want to bring this character back. That, yes, yeah,
The thing is like I'm taking like characters like from different aspects of my life. Like for example, like this Kelly is like the bad person I am. Charlotte is like the person who is always seeking the truth. Her girlfriend is like the protective side. Um, and yeah, and to be honest, it's like kind of hard because I would love to have a drink with all of them, and there are like probably like different questions I would ask. For example, Claire, who is Charlotte's girlfriend, I would ask her like, how do you do like to actually like like be with her? Like she's horrible and still you love her. Like why? I mean,
yeah.
but yeah,
No,
it's
that's great. That's great.
mm,
Um, I'd like to talk a little bit more about now your creative process in different areas, and how you develop your plot. So how do you go about plotting? Are you Well, I'll just leave it at that, and let you talk about plotting
mhm.
and
So
creating a
plotting.
story.
So plotting, I'm not really plotting. I mean, I am kind of plotting, but just the big events. For example, I've got like events scheduled. I mean, I had like now because like the book is published and it's like finished, like events for like the first opus, which are like unfolded as they are. Then I've got like events for the second one. Then I've got events for like I have like the starting point and the finishing point, and in the
Okay.
end I have to go through like it's like like a race pretty much. Like you're like just walking like from A to B, like you're going from like an airport to another, and you just have to skip the clouds or
So
passing
you're
through.
you're
And
you're like a minimal plotter. You're not a true pantser, or do you think yourself as more
yeah,
of a true pantser? Have you heard those terms,
uh,
pantser and plotter?
yeah. Well, I wouldn't say I don't know what what do you mean by pantser
A
actually?
pantser is someone who just starts writing with an idea of a story, but they don't know how what's gonna happen. They just start writing, and the story tells itself as they work their way through it.
Yeah,
Whereas a
so
plotter is
like
someone who comes up with the stories. Like I'm a plotter, so
yeah.
I know what's going to happen in the story. I rearrange it. I have everything listed down in the order, so I know exactly what's going to happen at any given moment.
So I'd say I'm more like a pantser, yeah. But the thing is, like when I'm writing a chapter, I'm actually like writing it in a very different way. I mean, for example, I'm not like writing like beginning to ends. I'm actually writing like first speeches, then after narrative. And so first, like for example, like my creative process is like I usually have like long conversations with myself, where I imagine myself like being like my main character, or interactions with like other characters, and so on and so on. And then after, I'm sitting back in my desk and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep this. I'm gonna take the conversation like to this point, and so on and so on. And then after, like following like the conversation, I'm like, for example, like when the character says, I don't know, like, hey, hello, how are you? And then I'm like putting like narrative there, about like how I feel, like how like my character feels, what she thinks about like the person who's in front of her, the environment, what's around her, and like so on and so on. And this is how I'm like literally building the book. And I've got like events, so I'm like scheduling usually like 10 chapters away. This is why my books are so lengthy, because I'm always like like putting lots of details, because I love like accuracy. I love to be like very accurate in what I write. So this is, yeah. And in the end, like so I'm like usually like doing like in three periods. So like the first period is like the writing, the second period is like the editing, and the third period is like the publishing, which is the shortest. For example, I've been like in this series for like nearly 10 years. Like in the 9th of January, it's gonna be 10 years that I'm working with Charlotte. And I've been writing like 2 books, and I've got like at least 10 books coming. I've got like events for like the 10 books ahead. So yeah, that's how I'm like kind of like processing everything.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, I was that was my next question was going to ask you about your writing process. What part of the writing process do you like the most?
I love creating. I hate editing. I mean, I hate editing, but I love, like, for example, I've been editing like the first act of Free Expensive Lies at least 4 times, because like in the end of the first time, the first round of edition, it was not like the result I wanted. Then after, it was like something else. Then after, I cut the book in two because it was like too long, and then I had like some stuff and some stuff. And I like basically when I'm like writing like the book, I'm like making like like cutting like specific events, building them, and in the end, I don't know like how the book like looks like, because I'm literally writing it like completely anyhow. It's like like when you're building like a house, you're like building the house, you're building like the bedroom, the living room, the kitchen, and everything. But it's like you're just putting words, and it doesn't give you like a clear idea of the final result. And it's like when I'm actually like editing the book, that I've got like a real idea of what the book is gonna look like once published. And then I'm like making like all the rearrange and everything to make sure that it's readable, and like not repetitive, and everything. So this is how I'm like basically mostly working.
This is like one of the
Yeah.
reasons why I love doing this podcast, because of finding out other writers' creative processes, and we
Yeah.
all start with an idea somewhere in our brain, and we
Yeah.
all end up with a finished book. But how we go
Yeah.
from there to there,
There. Yeah.
everyone is so different, and that's what is so fascinating.
It is.
Because the pantsers drive me bonkers, because like how maybe because I'm an academic and I spent most of my life in academia.
Yeah.
So I taught composition, and I'm talking, academic writing is very much
Hmm.
orderly, organized. You have points you want to
Yeah.
make. You have to develop that,
Mm.
transitions. It's a very
Of
rigid kind of
course.
structure. So because
Yeah.
you have to, you're arguing or defending a thesis, you're making a point.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so, and the same thing, it's efficient as a student, as an academic, to
Yeah.
make outlines, and it's very helpful.
Mm.
So I carry that all into my fiction writing.
Yeah.
So I mean, like my current work, which is the second book in the Cozy series, like my
Mm.
outline's like 23 or 26 pages. I mean, it's just a really long outline. But that's including like dialogue and things that I will transfer.
Yeah.
But and it's color coded, you know.
Yeah.
So, but
Hmm.
like, what are the cozy elements? What are the mystery elements? So that when I'm writing a
Yeah.
section, I'll keep in my mind, like, okay, this is what I really need to emphasize here. This is a cozy section, so I got to make it extra,
Yeah.
all the extra adjectives to make it warm and gushy and those things. And
Hmm.
so, but I know that process. When I've talked to other pantsers,
Hmm.
they said they get anxious thinking about a long outline, and I tell them it's the same. I get the same feeling when they start talking about, oh, I got an idea for a
Mm.
book. I'm just going to start writing. I'm like, how do you, they go, I go, how's it going to end? They go, I don't know. I haven't written it
Yeah.
yet. I'm like, how can you do that? Um, so I find this fascinating that everyone is different in their process, and
Mm.
I will sometimes, I know the end of the book, sometimes before I write word one, you know. So I'm writing a horror book.
I mean, it's the
I've
same
already
for
written.
Charlotte.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
the same for Charlotte. I mean, I design like every single event until her death, and I know precisely how she's gonna die. And that's the interesting things with like writing a book is like you literally have a total control over someone's life. For example, that movie I loved with Dustin Hoffman, Stranger Than Fiction. um it was like it's actually like the story of like a main character, like he's like literally shaving, like I love that scene. It's like shaving, and suddenly, like, like when he's shaving, he hears a voice like of someone telling, uh, he was shaving, but he didn't know that he was gonna die today. And it's like, yeah, that's, for example, I told like my wife, for example, like if I decide that Charlotte is gonna hit a bus tomorrow, she can try like all the possible way to try to avoid it. She's gonna hit the bus anyway. So
Sorry,
that's
Charlotte.
the
All right.
I mean, I'm not planning that for her, but
Sure.
it's like the thing, like you literally have like some it could be like perverse in a way, but it's always like interesting to know that you've got like someone that, like you're deciding literally every single events that's gonna happen for her, and it's
Right. Yes. Yes. In plotting my horror story, which takes place in the same world, in the same characters, same town as my cozy
mhm,
mystery series, which is one
yeah,
thing I'm really excited about it. We have this really sweet and innocent, charming series, and then a horror
yeah.
novel with all those same characters where everybody fucking dies, and I've been like writing their deaths, like, oh, this is going to be horrible. The readers are going to be so upset about this, and I've literally written the end of the book. Like, I know how it's going to end. I'm like, I felt the gut punch. I'm like, oh, phew. So I'm more excited about that. I just need to write my cozy mysteries to get them out there
Yeah.
so I can finish them off, so I can kill them all off.
Mm.
Um, yes, no, I get it. I get it. Um, so when you're writing, I think you've already breached this a little bit, but you do research for your books a little bit, right? With the manipulation, and you've
Yeah.
done research. So what kinds of research specifically do you do when writing?
So, well, it can be like literally anything from like, for example, like the second opus takes place in Paris. So, for example, I want to be like as accurate as possible. So, like for example, sometimes I'm going like on the Paris transport like website to see like how long it takes to go like from a place to another. I've been living in Paris like just a few years, so it was but still it was like a long time ago, so I barely remember that. I mean, now that I'm 27, I mean, it's I lived when I was like 16 or 17, so it's like there was kind of water under the bridge. But it can be like, for example, recently I've been like doing researches about um, it was like completely silly. It was like about like like the anesthesian gas, like what's in anesthetic gas, and
Hmm.
how to gas someone literally. So I was like, I just hope I'm not like like researched by the police because I think that they might like start
Right.
questioning themselves over me.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
like this is really for a book. I mean, it's
Yes.
the truth.
Yes. Right. No,
Um,
yes. No, I get it. Yeah, our
uh,
search bars, our search engines. Yeah. So you have to get a VPN, a private network,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
I guess I no,
Uh,
I totally get it because some of the things I've had to look up
yeah.
for my books, I'm like, okay, that's fine. I get it.
There was this. What else? I made some researches recently about the near-death experience as well. I'm not saying anything because it's like if like some readers want to read like Free Expensive Loves and want to read like the second, I'm not saying anything. But it was like actually like really interesting to do that. For example, like what happens when you stab someone or something like this. Uh, it's kind of like lots of researches. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm like doing a lot. But regarding like manipulation, uh, I'm not doing like a lot of researches because I mean we are all manipulators. In a way or another, but some people are more skilled than others. For example, like when younger, I learned how to do hypnosis and Ericksonian hypnosis as well. I learned how to practice NLP. I know NLP is not like an accurate science, but hypnosis is. Uh, um, so yeah, but it's been like years that I didn't practice because like I've been like doing recently. I've been like mostly like focusing on piloting, so it was like more like non psychological things. But yeah, it's a lot of researches. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. Um, no, I totally get that. You have to make sure that
mm,
the details are accurate and the things that you write
yeah,
about, especially in certain, those realms, because
yeah,
people who know those things are going to call
mm,
you out if it's not right. And
yeah,
yeah, I try to do, depending on what I'm writing. Like my last book was set in the 1930s in Haiti and
mm-hmm,
near Haiti, and
yeah,
so I did research into what was going on in the 1930s in Haiti, and the
mm-hmm,
climate and the soil and the relationships between the
yeah,
United States and Haiti, and then of course voodoo and
mm,
zombies and Loa,
yeah,
the religion of Voodoo. And I
mm,
did that because I wanted to be respectful of the religion and do it
yeah,
right,
mm,
treat it correctly, because one of the Loa, Samedi, the kind
mm-hmm,
of the Lord of the Dead, um,
yeah,
is a main character in my story. So I wanted to
mm,
get his personality right,
yeah,
and but it was fun though. The academic
yeah,
in me still loves to research and
mm,
still loves to find new things out.
yeah,
The trick is to give that information out without
mm,
teaching or being, it's like we want to do it subtly, but just directly without calling
yeah,
attention to it, but be
mm,
accurate. No, I get it.
yeah. Yeah, it's the same. Like, I mean, I've always been like having like this pilot mind, which is like as pilots, we love to know like how things are working, and it's why I'm trying to be like as accurate as possible because we never know. Like, I mean, probably like my book is gonna like help someone, or it's you never know like what's in the reader mindset when he reads your work. So it's always like and even like I've been like trying to like I want to do like, for example, I'm planning to do like a ride along with the police because like the second opus is gonna take place like in the police universe. So that's the thing. And to be like, I think it's important to be like accurate when you're like writing a story, because otherwise, like you said, like being respectful. And Charlotte is also like this kind of person, who is always right. Like she's always like, she has like the same like absolute memory as I have. So like if for example like you don't know like details about something, you may like be passed for an idiot. So it's like first your credibility that is like in place, and obviously.
Nice. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. What is your favorite time of day to write?
Oh, I love writing by evenings. Once the after the sunset. But I mean, I don't really have like specific times. I mean, like for example, on my days off, I love to actually go like to my local coffee shop. They are like independent like business, and I love sitting there because they've got like first obviously nice coffee. And I'm working in a coffee shop, so obviously like my taste of coffee is quite uh, but so I've got like this, but I mean it depends. I love rainy days for working are the best, because like rainy days are like like when your inspiration comes. And so I mean, for me it's like that.
Do you listen to music while writing, or have some kind of distraction in the background, or do you need total silence?
No, no, no. I need to be like completely isolated, and I need to be with like my music. I'm it can be like all kind of music. I mean, sometimes I'm more like, it depends on the mood really. It's sometimes it's like I can listen to like classic music when I write, or it can be like recently, for example, I've been listening to like French pop music, or sometimes like hard rock, like sometimes like metal, or it's like very depending on like how I feel, when I write
Hmm.
mostly.
Yeah, I think the music puts us into a mindset, a framework,
Yeah,
a mental space
definitely. Yeah.
that's conducive to
Mm,
what it is that we're trying to write. You know,
yeah.
um,
Yeah.
as part of the one of the characters in my cozy series is an autistic boy who runs
Mm-hmm.
this radio station in town
Yeah.
from his house, and
Mm-hmm.
likes to play music from the 1930s. And so because I love that music too, the big band, the swing, and
Yeah.
so I have all these music from my soundtrack that I listen to when I'm writing, and a lot of like
Mm-hmm.
Lionel Hampton, who plays vibraphone. And so
Mm,
I will often put those songs that I'm listening to like in the story, as
yeah.
when the character comes up, and kind of mention those things. And
Mm,
it just because it kind of puts me into this nice headspace. And
yeah.
when I wrote my last novel, Death's Head, because it's about voodoo and zombies.
Mm,
I listened to voodoo music. I had a big 5 hour like track of like
yeah.
Haitian voodoo drums and chants and singing,
Yeah.
and I just
Mm,
put that on, just left it on for the
yeah.
entire month that I wrote that book. I was like listening to voodoo music like
Mm.
5 hours a day, and it just kind of I just kind of got into the rhythms of it. I just kind of felt it, and
Mm,
worried my wife a little bit,
yeah.
but I thought it was very helpful to make me feel like I was close in this kind of spiritual thing,
Yeah.
so no, I get that.
I mean, it's the same with Charlotte. I mean, Charlotte is originally, like a posh girl living in the posh suburb of Paris. She's a millionaire, so she doesn't have like, the thing is like she's so rich that she doesn't need to work her entire life, which is my obvious dream of you, of course. But I mean, who wouldn't be? But um yeah, it's like depending on like the mood. Like when Charlotte interacts with like another character, she's like, I'm mostly like listening to like some music that goes, like with the character mindset, and so on and so on. So it's pretty much like this how I work with music at least.
Yeah, that's good. How often do you write, or do you try to write?
Well, the thing is, I'm trying to write as much as I can on my days off because I'm like, well, so I'm basically like uh, managing a shop. I mean, right now I'm not really managing, but when I was managing, like I used to write. I used to have like this long shift at works, like at least 10, 11 hours a day, like of like problems and problems. So it didn't give me like that much time to write. And when I was coming back home, I was just like too shattered that I just went to bed, and and that was it, just getting myself ready for the next shift. But when I'm off, I'm actually like switching off everything. And I mean, as a manager, I couldn't, but now I can. So I'm like literally switching off everything and just like writing. And I'm writing like during like these 2 days, um, going like to the coffee shop and just like staying like for. I mean, like last day I went there, I started like I arrived like at 10 and I left. At 5 or 6 when they closed, and they had to tell me sorry, we're closing. So I was like, okay, sorry, but it's like, yeah, I can be like, I can stay like, and how often is like I'm trying to write like at least every week, so at least once a week.
Mhm.
But obviously, with like the calendar, it's like really impossible now
Oh, it's
to.
it's hard to try to balance everything, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it is hard sometimes, and you have to be in
yeah,
in the right mental place to write,
yeah.
especially if it's going to be real and have any kind of genuine connection to emotion or to something important.
Mm.
So,
Oh yeah, yeah, of course, yeah.
and yeah, and I know I get that, because
Mm.
sometimes creativity, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs takes place, and if you can't be creative if you're worried about other base things, and
Yeah.
no, so I totally understand that. Um,
Yeah.
um, Tell me how you felt about seeing your book in print for the first time.
Oh, wow. It was actually a very emotional moment. I was like, I had this in my hands and I was like, wow, this is real. This is my baby. This is my thing. And I was like, wow. I mean, it's when you have like your book in print is like a time capsule. It's like you are gonna expire one day, but this will remain after you. And I was like, wow. Especially when I sent my book to the British Library, it was like also a big moment because I was like, my book is there, and it's part of the British heritage now. Um, and yeah, when I had this, I mean, it was like actually an intense moment. It was like uh, giving birth, uh, pretty much. I mean, I had like this thing in my hand. I was like, wow, this is like my work, and I did it actually. And yeah, I mean that's how I felt it. I literally like when I opened the box from Amazon, I literally cried. I was like, oh my god, you know. I didn't film it because even my wife wanted to actually film it like for me, but I was like, no, no, no. This is like still like too intimate. So yeah,
Yeah, it's a very special moment. I get that.
yeah,
So,
it is.
ha
Yeah.
have you ever read your work, your own work, a year or more after you published it? Like you set it aside and then you come back and read it like a year or two later?
Actually, no, 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 no. I didn't do it. I didn't do it because I know that if I'm like reading my book, I will be like willing to unpublish it and change everything. So I prefer leave it as it is. It's like, I mean, to me, I mean, I don't have like the same point of view as a writer than I used to have it as a reader. I mean, when I was a reader, I used to have like this point of view as like, this is like, this is fine, this is I don't like that, I like this. But now as a reader, it's like really completely different. I mean, it's as a writer, it's like really different. I will be like, oh my god, I wrote this, I need to change this, and so it's why I'm leaving it like as it is. I don't really want to reopen it now.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Because we at every book we write, we're not the same writer that we were, as we wrote the
Yeah.
book.
Mm.
And I mean, because when you're preparing it and editing it, and you read it so many times, you just kind of like,
Yeah.
once it's out in the world, you just kind of let it go, But
Yeah.
it had been since when I started working on the second book of my Cozy series, I had to go back and read the first one again, because I
Yeah.
just had forgotten so much. I had written 3 other books in between. I'm like, I don't remember what happens or who the characters' names are, except for a
Yeah.
few. But there's, and what I was afraid of was getting a lot of these cringy moments, like, oh God, Mark, what the hell are you thinking? And
Mm.
surprisingly, there were only a few that weren't necessarily cringy, but they were a little saccharine. I mean, it was like,
Yeah.
okay, I could ease down the sweetness here.
Mm.
But there were more moments that I was surprised, like, oh, this isn't so bad. I mean, you did a
Mm.
nice line here, Mark. That's good for you, But it was just a surreal experience, because the overwhelming
Mm.
emotional part was, I didn't remember writing most of it. Like, I knew
Yeah.
I wrote it because I was there at the keyboard typing away,
Mm.
but I didn't recall, like actively recall, remember writing most of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
where did this come from? Like,
Mm.
where in the world did all this come from? Because I'm, at the moment, you're writing sentence after sentence. You're just trying to get to the
Mm.
place where you need to go. And
Yeah.
when you see it in its totality, it's a whole different experience. But
I, I had the same feeling when I wrote the book. I was like, the feeling like that you described, like having no remembrance of what happened, was like, yeah, it's like you have this and you realize that you wrote this, and it's sorry, that's my wife in the back.
that's fine. That's fine. Fine.
So yeah, no, you have like no remembrance of what happened and everything. So that's yeah, it's, you wrote this, but you realize that it's, yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it. Just a few more questions, Taylor.
Yeah.
What is your writer fantasy?
What do you mean, writer fantasy?
Well, most writers like have an idea when they write. They imagine an ultimate end. Like, if you could imagine, what's the best case scenario for yourself as a writer, your books, like, what do you want to happen with them? I mean,
Oh,
like, your fantasy
I
as a
mean,
writer, like, do you want the recognition? Do you want the sales? Do you want, you
I
know,
mean, I want recognition, yeah. Just like I would love to have to build a community around my book. That's the thing. Like, people like hype by talking about my book. Yeah, that's the ultimate dream. Yeah. I mean, it's getting hard because now that we self-publish books, so there's a lot of competition. There's like a lot of writers, and there's a lot of writers and not that much readers. Unfortunately, now people are reading less and less,
yes.
or they are just like reading like books, like the labeled New York Times bestsellers, which is a disgrace in my point of view,
Yeah.
but it's
Right. We've talked a little bit about that. Yeah.
yeah.
For the people out there who may not know, you're thinking the New York Times bestseller list, like, oh my God, it's a bestseller. It must be really important. Kids, you only need to sell 5,000 copies to make that list. It's which
Exactly.
is, I mean, comparatively to most books, which sell only a few hundred copies a year, maybe 1,000 in their lifetime, I guess it means something. But it's not like
Mhm.
you got to sell, like, to get a platinum record in the music industry, you got to sell 1,000,000 copies. You only
Yeah,
need to sell
exactly.
5,000.
5,000 and
Everyone's,
you
yeah,
get the
I can
title.
write a bestseller. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm almost there.
it's yeah.
Another,
It's why when I published He Fell from Venus, I actually wrote like from the number one bestseller on my cover, but just for sarcastic purposes. because like in the end I was like, oh well, it's like everybody does this, so why not me? I
Right.
mean, I'm not a best-selling
Yeah.
writer, but it was just like, you
It's,
know.
I've seen so many books on Amazon that said #1 in the Amazon charts, this and that, because
Hmm?
there's 1,000 different little charts in Amazon, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
groups, subgroups. Like
Mm,
when Toxic came out, my third book, it's a nonfiction book,
mm,
and it when I first released it, like within a week, it jumped to like 5,000 spots, like from where I
mm-hmm.
released it in this
Yeah.
subcategory. It was still like
Mm,
number 8,000 or something, but it jumped from 13,000 to 8,000. And I'm like,
yeah.
wow, that's a big jump, but it's still 8,000 in this category.
Yeah.
So I think those things are subjective, but it's nice to,
Mm,
to have, the something, but
yeah.
no, I get that. So
I mean, my dream is to become like, a pilot, air captain who wrote a best-selling book. So that's the,
nice. Okay, good.
yeah.
Well, what advice would you give for anyone who wants to write?
Well, it's like the same advice I would give to like anyone who starts piloting. It's not because you're writing like I don't know, age 20 or age 30 or age 40 or whatever. You can start anytime, and the most important is just enjoy what you do. Just because like um uh the thing you are doing now will remain in history. You won't, but your book will go down in history. So it's the thing. Just like enjoy what you do as much as you can, and that's it. That's the advice I would give to anyone who wants to write. Um, I mean, not only writing, just like anything in art or in life, just like follow your dream, because like in the end, like this is something I spoke to like one of my fellow writers. It's like if you don't like you're like the real the director of your life. You are the director and the actor of your life. Don't let like anyone directing your life for yourself on your behalf. Just do what you have to do, and that's the thing. If you feel like there's the right way to go, then don't hesitate a second and go. I mean, there's always time to do things, always, all the time. And I think this is the message I would deliver to like anyone who wants to write.
It's a good message. We've only got two
Yeah.
more questions. Um,
Yeah.
Tell me about your current work in progress.
So basically, I'm like halfway. I'm like in 25% like actually like of completion. So it's gonna be published probably like by the beginning or mid 2024, because now there's a lot of things to do. Like I've got like a lot to do, like literally between like work, between piloting and everything. I have to pass the license, which is like taking like a big step and a lot of to actually focus on. So probably like mid 2024. It's coming, for sure, it's coming, but it's gonna take like a bit. But for now, for sure, like nothing will change. I mean, the book is nearly ready as it is. I just have like one part, so it could be like faster, probably like end of 2023. But either way, I will announce everything on my websites
Okay.
and even on Instagram, like as soon as I've got like
Yeah. Nice.
certainty that it's like ready to go.
Good. And this is my last question. You've kind of maybe hinted at that. Where can we find your books?
Oh, you can literally find my book anywhere, like Amazon. I mean, they are literally everywhere, every platforms like Amazon, Smashwords, Waterstone if you're living in the UK, Forbes as well. If you're living in the US, you can find it in Barnes and Noble. Not in shop, but if you order it online, of course, it's available in paperback, in hardback as well. I've got like the short version of Free Expensive Lies, for like, so basically like Free Expensive Lies, I've got like two versions. There's the integral version, which is like the 290,000 words.
That's a big book.
That's a big baby, but I've
Yeah.
got the short version, which is called the highlight version, which is like 100,000 words, so it's like much easier to read. Same for like the second opus. There's gonna be two versions: the highlight and the integral version. I think I'm gonna keep that format for like literally every new acts that are to come. So this is like the first act. The second act is to publish by 2023, 2024. There's gonna probably be He Fell from Venus 2. I still don't know yet, probably at some point, but we'll see. And yeah, but literally anywhere you can find my book anywhere. Yeah.
Excellent. Taylor, I want to thank you for coming on the show again. It's been really wonderful to talk with you and get to know you
Thank you
more
very
and
much.
learn about your creative process. And this has been great. So thank you for coming on today.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Well, I'm going to do my commercial and then we'll get out of here. Hey, you've been watching and listening to Between the Lines. You can find us at unsaneradio.com. You can listen to full episodes or download to your device. You can watch us on our YouTube page. It's Between the Lines Podcast. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And you can find us on the Otel Talk channel on Roku. If you know someone who would like our show, tell them about us. And if you're a writer who would like to come and join me for a chat, email me at betweenthelines54@yahoo.com, betweenthelines54@yahoo.com. And Taylor, here's my cheesy outro line. See you next time, Between the Lines.
See you next time.
That's right.